Hey guys, as promised, I have Scott Peterson's declaration, which is labeled Exhibit 19, the Declaration of Scott Peterson. Now, in this declaration, guys, Scott Peterson is basically outlining um, everything that the detectives failed to investigate when Laci Peterson went missing initially, right? All the things that were not done, how the detectives tunnel visioned on Scott Peterson. So, this is what Scott Peterson is writing in his own words. Now, the declaration overall, I believe, is 126 pages. So, this is going to be a multiple part video. This is part one. Make sure you guys, keep an eye out for part two because we're going to go into that. I'm curious to know about whether Scott's going to talk about Amber Fry. I will say, though, the first part that I'm about to read to you, it pokes a lot of holes into the investigation or lack thereof. Again, Scott is trying to, get a new trial. He's trying to have a new trial or his conviction overturned. I'm kind of wondering what you guys think, okay? This is a man that's been sitting behind bars for so many years who has continuously said he did not murder his wife. And let's be real, a lot of the evidence is circumstantial, nothing directly, no DNA type of evidence that pointed to Scott Peterson. Thought I should throw that out there. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. And shout out to everybody that supports the channel by, helping out with court docs and all those good things. Hit the like button. I'll see you guys. Let's go. Declaration of Scott L. Peterson. I, Scott L. Peterson, hereby declare under penalty of perjury that the following is true and best and accurate to the best of my knowledge. I am 52 years old and currently incarcerated by the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation at Mule Creek State Prison in California, serving a sentence of life without the possibility of parole. In 2004, I was wrongfully convicted of murdering my wife, Laci Peterson, and our unborn son, Connor. The identity of the perpetrators responsible for the killing of my wife and my son has always been a contested issue in this case. It was the only issue at trial. There was no direct forensic or physical evidence ever found that implicated me. I have steadfastly maintained my innocence from the moment my wife went missing on December 24th, 2002. Throughout my trial, appeal, and post-conviction proceedings, and to this day, I had absolutely nothing to do with the disappearance and deaths of my wife and son. I'm not a violent person. I have never had any incident or rule violation reported since my wrongful incarceration began in 2003. At my request and on my behalf, investigations into who is responsible for the deaths of my wife and my son have been ongoing over the last 22 years and continue to this day. It is important to me that whoever killed my wife and my son be found and held accountable. If whoever committed such violence against Laci and Connor is still at large, they are a danger to public safety. It is also important to me that I clear my name and my family's name because I did not and could never harm or kill my family. Background: I first met Laci Rocha in San Luis Obispo at a July 4th party in 1994. She was attending Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, and I was attending community college. I had opened a crating and packing business with my parents in Morro Bay, like the one they had successfully started in San Diego. We each made an equal investment in the new business and went to work. At that time I was starting the new business, I was working a couple of jobs at restaurants and golf courses while attending classes at community college. After I met Laci, I quit working at the restaurant and started going to Cal Poly, taking more classes so that I can get through school. Laci and I dated and lived together steadily over the next 3 years and married on August 9th, 1997. Laci graduated before I did and took a job in the Salinas area with a wine distributor. I stayed in San Luis Obispo to finish school. Sometime before I graduated, my parents needed to move back to San Diego to work at their business there. So I bought out half of their business, which I later sold. After graduation, I interviewed with a company in Omaha, Nebraska, and another one in Sacramento. But Laci and I liked San Luis Obispo, so we decided to stay there. She got a job working as a party and wedding coordinator at the resort where we married. I was not finding anything job wise, so we decided to open up a restaurant called The Shack. We found a location, negotiated a lease, gutted the place, and built a restaurant. It was a successful business. We had a line out the door at least a couple of nights a week. It was hard work and long hours, but we enjoyed it. Most nights I closed the restaurant and then stayed late fixing plumbing, cleaning grease traps and fryers, scrubbing bathrooms, and ordering supplies. It was during this period that Laci pointed out that I should put my dirty clothes straight into the wash machines when I got home instead of the clothes hamper because I was ruining some of her nicer garments by putting my smelly, greasy clothes into the hamper. It became a habit of mine to put my work clothes straight into the washer when coming home, and one I continued when we lived in Modesto and worked around smelly chemicals used in the agricultural fertilizer business. On December 24th, 2022, when the police responded to my family's missing person report about Laci, they asked me where my clothes were and I had worn that day. I told them that I had come home and put them straight into the washing machine, which is what I normally did due to the agricultural products I work with. That day, I did the same because my clothing was a bit damp and salty. I put my clothes into the washer before I knew Laci was missing and before I realized anything had happened to her. I told the I told that to the police. I also told the police that before I put my clothes into the machine, I had to take the cleaning rags out of the washer that our housekeeper had used that day before when she came to clean. The cleaning rags are piled on top of the washer, shown below. We have some pictures here. Detective Broccini testified that he found it suspicious that there were dirty rags piled on top of the washer, but our housekeeper, Margarita Nava, told police that she used the rags to clean the inside of the fireplace screen and also our outside window, which is why they were so dirty. Detective Broccini directed others to collect the white rags so that they could be forensically examined. Nothing suspicious was found on the rags. 2 days later, a search warrant was executed, and the report I reviewed indicated that a team of more than 20 detectives, officers, criminalists exhaustively searched our home inside and out, using alternate light source and other forensic methods to search for evidence of foul play. The photo below shows criminalists examining our washer and dryer for evidence. There was no physical or forensic evidence implicating me ever found anywhere on my clothing or on the cleaning rags or on the washer and dryer or anywhere else in our house or vehicles or boats or anywhere else. And that is because I did not harm or kill my wife or son. The prosecutors nevertheless told the jury in closing arguments at trial that the fact that I washed my clothes was evidence of my guilt. That argument was false. And Scott shows us a screenshot, I guess, of that argument. In the argument, which is the box, the text in the box, it says, he says that he washes his clothes, only his clothes. Now, why are you going to do that? The reason he gave, I think, to the media and to everybody else, well, I got some salt water on it. So what? You got blank. You are going to take the time when you know you have to be at your in laws, like in an hour. Your wife's not there. The dog is in the backyard with the leash on. There is all these weird things going on. Oh, better wash my fishing clothes. I got some salt water on them. Do you think that's really why he washed his clothes? Or do you think he washed his clothes because he wanted to make sure he didn't leave anything on them? What makes more sense to you? What is more reasonable to you? Anybody. I'm sure there is people on this jury that have gone fishing before. I'm sure when you come home, you might have got something on your clothes. And I doubt that you took things out of the washer, took off just your clothes and washed them. It's not reasonable. So Scott Peterson is showing us in this text box the argument that I guess the prosecutor made. Okay? So This is his side of the situation, his declaration. His declaration further goes: putting my clothes straight into the washer if they were grungy was simply a habit I developed when we ran the restaurant in San Luis Obispo, and something I did automatically without even thinking about it. 523 Covina Avenue. In 2000, Laci and I sold the restaurant business we built together and moved to Modesto, where Laci grew up and where her family still lived. We were planning to start a family of our own and wanted to own a home first, but the homes in San Luis Obispo were out of our price range. We ended up deciding to move to Modesto, where the homes were more affordable. Laci worked as a marketing representative for Southern Wines and Spirits, and then as a substitute teacher. I initially worked for a group of companies from Spain in a position that ended up allowing me to work exclusively for a company called Trade Corp or Trade Corp, a European company selling agricultural material products that was entering the market in California. I opened a US division for them and was manager of the Western US region. I had to travel for work more than I liked. I spent nearly a month in Spain when I was first being trained. After that, I traveled for a week long corporate meetings 3 times a year at various offices that included Brussels, Madrid, Porto, Cairo, and Guadalajara. I also attended trade shows and conferences at various places in California. Financially, Laci and I were doing all right. We spent what we earned. We made some good financial choices and some bad ones. With some help from my parents for the down payment, we bought a house at 523 Covina Avenue in the La Loma Park neighborhood of Modesto. It was a single family home in a quiet, older neighborhood with tree lined streets near a park called East La Loma Park. Laci was more familiar with Modesto than I was because she grew up there. She liked the location and thought the houses were perfect. After we bought the house, a friend of ours that was a financial advisor proposed as part of our planning for the financial security of our family that we purchase whole life insurance policies. We agreed with his recommendations and bought a life insurance policy in June of 2001, naming each other as beneficiaries. We worked on fixing up the house together. I was reasonably handy around the house and especially enjoyed doing woodworking projects. Laci and I liked doing home improvement projects together on the weekends and would go to Home Depot and Lowe's to look for design ideas and pick out paint colors and do what we could do to update the house. We made improvements so that the place would be better for entertaining and raising a family. We had a lot of friends and family, and we liked having people over for dinner or to watch football games, things like that. We repainted and redecorated the inside of the house. I updated and retiled the powder room off the living room. We added an in ground pool, put in a built in barbecue, and I built a new wooden fence in the backyard. We also planted some new trees in the backyard. Laci majored in ornamental horticulture in college and enjoyed landscape. Photos below show some of the upgrades we made to our home and were taken by police when they searched our home in 2002 2003. In the days and weeks after Laci was abducted, they show some of the upgrades we made. So we have some photos of the property, okay? The pool. Definitely a beautiful home, I would say. Our house did not have a garage, so we kept our household and gardening tools in a built-in shed in the backyard and a prefab storage unit that was on the south side of our house. The police took the photos below showing these storage areas when they searched our home. Laci was a huge fan of Martha Stewart and was always getting decorating ideas from her magazines and shows. We often had the Martha Stewart show on in the background in the morning as we got ready to start our day. Laci saved her magazines, and the photo below, taken by police, shows Laci's library of Martha Stewart magazines on our bookshelves. Laci would find ideas for pieces of furniture she liked, and I would use my self taught woodworking skills to try to create them for her.
I had woodworking equipment I kept at the warehouse where my office was located, like a router table, a table saw, a bandsaw, a circular saw, and other tools I used to build furniture from our home. For our home. Pictured below is a sideboard I built for our dining room. I also made the copper frame from the mirror above it for Laci. As we learned that we were having a baby, Laci designed the nursery, and we worked together to get it ready for the baby's arrival. We decided to go with the nautical theme, and I did all of the painting, helped Laci get the furnishings she wanted. Laci saw a table in a magazine she liked and wanted it for Connor's nursery, so I made the table for her. I also modified a dresser for the nursery so it could be used as a changing table. I rebuilt it, painted it, and made sure the drawers worked properly. The mobile was hung above the dresser. It was a project Laci and I did together. The table I made and the dresser I refurbished, also shown below in photos taken by police after Laci was abducted. We plan to add high sides and a changing pad to the top of the dresser to use it as a changing table. Connor's sonogram image are shown on the table. Wow. Okay, let me time out a little bit here, okay? Because I feel like the reason why, this is Scott's thing, right? This is his little appeal. He's the one that's basically, putting this out here. I feel like the reason why he's doing this in part is because he wants to, tell the people that he wasn't planning to kill his wife. No, he was planning to have a baby. That's what he was doing. So he's telling everybody, like, look, I did this furniture, this furniture, this furniture. This isn't a man who is planning to off his wife. I think it's kind of like, at least that's what I'm picking up from all of this, right? I think it's interesting because it does kind of make me wonder, like, well, if you're over here with Laci and you got, you're buying furniture, building furniture for her, building all kinds of things, when did you have time to even like decide I'm going to have an affair, I'm going to cheat on my, pregnant wife because of this behavior that he did while his wife was pregnant and expecting his, first child. Let's keep going with this. And again, this is Scott Peterson's own words that I'm reading. In November of 2002, Laci and I went to San Diego over Thanksgiving to see my family. They had a baby shower for Laci while we were there. We also went shopping, and Laci and I found a decorative lifesaver that we had been looking for to use in this nursery while we were there. It said, "Welcome aboard," and I hung that over the baby's crib. We were excited about becoming parents. The week before Laci was abducted, we went to Carmel to spend a few days with my parents, and we found a stuffed otter for the nursery. It is pictured on the shelf I hung over the dresser in the photo above. The photos below were taken by my parents the week before Christmas when we went to Carmel with them. Mackenzie, Gracie, and Siam, um, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. Siam. I think it's kind of like Siamese, but Siam. I believe that's probably the cat. Laci and I had an older dog, a golden retriever mix named Mackenzie, pictured below in the photo taken by police. We got him when he was a puppy. We also had two cats, Gracie and Siam, or Siam. On December 24, 2002, when the police responded to our missing person report about Laci and came to search our house, I gave them full access to anything they needed to search and answered all of their questions. They asked me about a mop bucket that were outside the door leading to our front courtyard. I told police that Laci wanted to mop the floor that morning. So we put the cats and the dog outside. I filled up the mop bucket for her so she would not have to lift the heavy bucket out of the sink. I told police that when I returned home that afternoon, the animals ran into the house as soon as I opened the door and headed straight to the mop bucket that was on the floor filled with water, like they were going to drink from it or knock it over. I grabbed the mop and bucket, dumped out the water, and left them outside the door where they were when the police arrived. Our housekeeper cleaned for us the day before, but the floor in the kitchen got dirty quickly from the animals running in and out with their muddy paws, especially in the wintertime. We were hosting a family Christmas brunch the next day, and Laci wanted the house to be clean, so she mopped the kitchen floor. It was a small kitchen and only took a few minutes to mop. As with the cleaning rags, Detective Roccini found the mop and the bucket to be suspicious and directed an evidence technician to collect them so they could be forensically tested. So, one thing I will have to agree that everything that I've read about the Scott Peterson case, Detective Roccini completely approached this in such a tunnel vision way. He immediately, no questions asked, we got to find the evidence or the smoking gun to make this man guilty. I think that's dangerous. One thing I learned in, a couple of my criminology classes, especially talking to like former law enforcement, is that tunnel vision is a real thing, right? When you just zero in and you don't even look at anything else but that. And then you put things together to make things work for that narrative. And that's what's been so questionable about Detective Roccini is all of his actions, everything, his investigative work in this case was not the best. Nothing that was collected and forensically examined shows any signs of foul play in our home. The mop and the bucket Detective Roccini ordered be collected into evidence and tested are shown below. I recall there being an article on the front page of the National Enquirer at some point saying that the smell of bleach was present in the house that night. That's not true. That was not true. In a chambers conference, Detective Roccini's testimony at trial, my attorney asked the judge if he could question Roccini about leaking the false information about there being a smell of bleach to the National Enquirer. There was an investigation into who leaked the false information, and a Superior Court judge said Roccini was the one who told her within a week of the article being published that there was a smell of bleach in the house. However, all of the officers who were in our home that night testified that there was no smell of bleach. That report was simply not true. There is the mop bucket. When the police searched our house for signs of foul play that night of December 24th, 2002, they also saw a small throw rug in our living room that was not lying flat. The police asked me about the rug, and I told them the dog and the cats must have been playing there. Detective Roccini testified in my trial that the police found the mops, buckets, cleaning rags, and scrunched up throw rug to be suspicious. And again, the text in the box is the questioning that Scott Peterson is showing us. It says question Q. And those were the physical items that they find to be suspicious, correct? Physical items that they observed at the house that they believed were suspicious. Roccini answers, yes. Question. Okay, and the things that they found to be suspicious that they told you they found to be suspicious were two mops outside of the door, correct? Detective Roccini answers, yes. Question, with a bucket? Roccini responds, yes. Some white rags on a washer and dryer? Roccini responds, yes. And a throw rug that was scrunched up? Roccini responds, yes. And additional things. The rug the police found suspicious is shown below. This rug right here, why do they find this suspicious? This rug, y'all seen it right there. Why is that even suspicious? It looks like just one of those like I have those at a door, you just kind of wipe your feet and you leave it there. It's a dirty rug. Sometimes the pets lay on it. Yeah, like why would that be suspicious? But okay, let's keep going. The police also took the photo below in our bedroom when they searched our house the night of December 24th. I read somewhere in a book or an article about my case. I think the author was named Cryer. The Detective Roccini thought that the indentations on the bedspread or duvet was evidence that I had strangled or suffocated Laci on the bed. I have no way of knowing if he believed that or said that to others. The truth is that our cats used to jump onto the bed and curled up after we got up in the morning. Oh my gosh. What do you guys think of this? Does this look like evidence of somebody somebody that was strangled here? Okay. Our habits was that the last person out of bed usually made the bed piling it, by pulling it up to cover the pillows. That is how we made the bed. The cats like to jump up and sleep at the foot of the bed after we got up for that day. That is why there are indentations on the duvet seen in the photo. There was nothing nefarious about the indentations in the duvet. If the bed looks unmade or hastily made, it is it is not because I did something to harm Laci on the bed. It is because that is where the cats like to sleep. After we planted some new trees in the backyard, Laci noticed that the cats were clawing at the bark on the new trees, as well as on some of the more mature trees. She was worried about the damage they were doing, so I bought some chicken wire. So I bought some chicken wire to wrap around the tree trunk to stop the cats from scratching them up. Detective Grogan testified that the police found it suspicious that there was a roll of chicken wire in the back of my truck when they searched our home for signs of foul play on December 24, 2002. The police had two theories about how I supposedly dispose of Laci's body. One theory was that I used 4 concrete anchors weighing 8 pounds each to weigh her down before putting her in the bay. Another theory was that she was wrapped in chicken wire, so or some form of plastic wrap. I told Detective Grogan that we had trees in the back. The cats were scratching, and I was planning on wrapping the chicken wire around to prevent that from happening. The photos below were taken by police during their searches of our truck, December 26, 2002, and home, February 18, 2003, and they show the chicken wire in the back of my truck and the scratch marks on the tree. When police were at our home executing another search warrant on February 19, 2003, one of the officers saw one of our cats scratching a tree in our backyard. Even after it was shown that I was telling the truth why I purchased the chicken wire, Detective Grogan continued to consult with experts about the chicken wire theory. In May and in April 2003, he consulted with experts who were assisting police with searching the bay for Laci's body, and continued putting forth the chicken wire theory. I had already explained why I bought the chicken wire, but the police continued with their working theory that I had somehow used the chicken wire to dispose of Laci's body. That simply was not true. There was no evidence ever found supporting the theory that chicken wire was wrapped around Laci's body. All of the above supposed evidence the police found to be suspicious was nothing more than a result of our having 2 cats and a dog who were all behaving exactly the way cats and dogs behave in a normal household. Nonetheless, the police seemed to have a strong belief, almost from the moment they stepped into our home, that I was responsible for harming my wife and my son. All of those suspicions were unfounded, and I explained to the police truthfully and repeatedly. Other suspicious things. Telephone book. When I had arrived home the afternoon of December 24th and saw Laci was not there, I assumed she had gone over to her mom's house earlier to help her with dinner. I recall Laci telling me that morning before I left that she may go over early to help. I told police that once I heard a phone message from Laci's stepdad on her answering machine asking us to bring over whipped cream when we came for dinner that night. I called them right away to see if Laci was already over there at her mom's house. I spoke to Sharon Rocha and told her that I could not find Laci, and she understandably became very concerned. We both were. As I was talking to her on the phone, I grabbed our telephone book and told her I was going to start calling hospitals and that I would call 911. I dropped the phone book on our kitchen bar and automatically opened to a page made of heavy cardstock with advertisements on it. It is it is shown in the photo below. So this is the phone book that he's talking about. Sharon told me that they would call 911 and I would start calling friends and go out and see if any of our neighbors had seen Laci that day. I hung up and rushed outside to start knocking on our neighbor's door. I did not give the phone book another thought the rest of the night because events got chaotic very fast. When I left for the park to look for Laci, I walked down the footpath at the north end of Covina and went over to the creek. I had McKinsey and a flashlight, and I followed the creek east towards the tennis court where I was going to meet Sharon. I was concerned that she may have fallen down the embankment into the creek. I remember calling 911 while I was in the park to see what was taking so long. My memory is that an incoming call from Ron may have cut the call off, but after seeing from my cell phone records that the call was made about 6:11 p.m., I may have seen the responding officer arrive at the park and ending the call. Detective Grogan testified that among the things police found suspicious that night was the fact that the phone book on the kitchen bar was open to a page that had an attorney's name on it. The implication was that I had gotten the phone book out a to look up phone numbers for attorneys. That is not true. Not until months later did Detective Grogan pull the phone book out of evidence to test whether I was telling the truth about why the phone book was open to that page. He concluded that I had told the truth. Question. Okay, now, when one of the other things that the officers thought was suspicious at the time, it hadn't been testified to, but I think it's in some of your reports, and I think you follow up on it, was that they saw a phone book open in the house. Isn't that correct? That's correct. Okay, and they thought that that was suspicious because the phone book was open and it was to an ad for an attorney. Is that right? Detective answers, that's correct. Okay, and that's one of the things that kind of piqued these officers' curiosity, though thought that was odd. Wife's missing. Why is there a phone book open for attorneys, right? Detective response. That was something that was mentioned, yes, sir. Okay. In a couple of reports, you did some investigation on that, didn't you? I did. And what you did is you found that phone book, correct? Yes. And you opened it a couple of times, determined that the reason it would be the attorney's ad is on a thicker piece of cardboard paper in the middle of the phone book, right? Yes. I saw that phone book would easily open to that page. Back in the phone book eras, y'all, like you had to be careful, right? Because they were like thick. And then, advertisers would pay extra, which would be like the cardboard area to advertise. And so every time you open the book, that would be the page that you would open. So this makes sense. I was not using the phone book to look up numbers of attorneys. That theory was absolutely false, but it was part of what caused the police to immediately suspect I killed my wife and son. I was extremely concerned about Laci and worried about her safety and health and whereabouts. I was focused only on finding her and making sure she was unharmed. It never even occurred to me to contact an attorney until others advised me that I needed a lawyer a few days later when police started applying for search warrants to search our property and had already made it abundantly clear to me and the rest of the world that they believed I killed my wife. When I was barred from entering my office to get some things I needed to hang missing person flyers the morning of December 26th, I called the corporate lawyer for my company to let them know that I was unable to access my work files. The corporate lawyer came over to our home and was there when police came to execute the first search warrant on our house, cars, computers, and my office, and other places. The corporate attorney is the one who first told me that I should contact an attorney before signing the consent form to allow them to execute the search. Okay, so there was another lawyer there that was a corporate lawyer. I mean, he wasn't there to advise Scott, if I'm hearing this correctly, right? Duffel bag. When the police were searching our house on December 24th, they saw a blue Nike duffel bag in the closet of our spare room, upside down on the floor, that they apparently thought was suspicious. Detective Brochini asked if it was normal to have a duffel bag where it was on the floor, and I told him it was, and that I can be I could be kind of a slob. As I told the police, the duffel bag was my gym bag and it was out because I had gone to the gym the day before. I kept the duffel bag on the shelf in the closet and it must have fallen. I used this closet and Laci used the one in our bedroom for her clothes. Brochini asked if I had gotten anything out of the gym bag and I told him I had taken my white tennis shoes out of it and put them on the wet bar. Detective Brochini wrote a report stating that he looked on the wet bar on my white tennis shoes were not there, indicating to the rest of the investigators working on finding Laci that I was lying about what I told them. In photographs taken by the police the night of December 24th and again on December 26th, when they executed the first search warrant on the house, my white tennis shoes can be seen on the wet bar outside of our back patio next to Mackenzie's leash, shown below. When Detective Roshini was cross-examined about writing in his report that my tennis shoes were not on the wet bar as shown on the photo above, he admitted that he had not looked for them on the wet bar. Detective Roshini also admitted that he learned of his error and that I had been truthful when I told them I had put my tennis shoes on the wet bar, but he never went back and wrote a supplemental report correcting his misstatement, instead of leaving the record as showing that I had not been truthful when I answered his questions on December 24th. What I told police is that on the morning of December 24th, as Laci and I were planning our day, she told me that she was going to take the dog for a walk. I initially told her that I would go with her and grab my shoes out of the gym bag to have them ready. I saw how late the morning was getting and changed my mind about walking with Laci. I told Laci that I had a few things I wanted to do at my office and warehouse, and that I was going to shift gears and head over to my office and then take the boat to Berkeley to test out the motor. At that point, I put my shoes outside of the wet bar. Laci and I did not wear shoes inside our house. We usually kept them in the closets or outside on the stoop by the door, as shown below. I usually kept a pair of sneakers or flip-flops on the back stoop, and Laci usually had a pair of sandals or sneakers or flip-flops there as well. The photo below shows the back stoop with a pair of my or Laci's sneakers on them. There was no particular reason why I put my shoes on the wet bar instead of the stoop that morning. That's just what I did. In the search warrant affidavit signed on December 26, it said Peterson would not give an explanation as to why Peterson would have to move tennis shoes from his bag to be placed on his wet bar before he went fishing.
Brita water filter. The one thing I saw that seemed out of the ordinary when I arrived back home that afternoon was that it looked like Laci was putting in a new Brita water filter and was possibly interrupted by something, because there were 3 full glasses of water, one empty glass sitting on top of the counter near the Brita water pitcher, as shown in the photos below. When Laci would change the Brita filter, she would run water through the new filter to purify it. Instead of throwing that water out, she used it to water the plants so that it would not be wasted. It was unlike Laci to leave home with an unfinished project lying on the countertop like that. The police did not collect the water glasses seen sitting on the kitchen counter near the Brita water pitchers as evidence, nor did they analyze them for fingerprints to my knowledge. I told Detective Briccini a lot of things that night, which he misstated or did not include in his written report. He claimed none of the statements I made that night were recorded during the 5-hour period police were questioning me between about 6 p.m. and 11 p.m. I would give anything to be able to go back in time and walk the dog with Laci, because I know she would still be alive and Connor would now be a young man. I know that Laci walked the dog that morning because that is what she says she was planning to do as soon as I left. And when I came home, Mackenzie still had his leash on, attached to his collar. Our neighbor also saw Mackenzie out in front of our house wearing his leash. Many of the statements and responses I gave to the police in the days and weeks after Laci was abducted, beginning the night of December 24th, were misinterpreted or not recorded or documented or memorialized anywhere at all. When the prosecution began providing me and my attorney with police reports after my arrest, I learned just how many things that were attributed to me were misrepresented.
It was also the first time I was able to see just how many leads the police were getting but not following up on in their search for Laci. When the police impounded my truck on December 26, I had a large cardboard box of rain gauges that were promotional giveaways in my Greenlee toolbox when I had forgotten the box was in there until after my arrest when I saw the photos the police took. So we have some photos here. The police removed the cardboard box of the rain gauges from the toolbox and failed to book it into evidence. Detective Grogan testified they had no idea what happened to the box. The prosecution told the jury I put my wife's dead body in the toolbox in the back of my truck and showed them photos of a demonstration they conducted with the pregnant woman from their office. Pictured below are photos the jury was shown demonstrating that a pregnant woman could fit inside the toolbox. Oh my God. So, guys, we're getting some insider info here that I never seen this before. I'm assuming this is an officer. She's pregnant. She's inside that toolbox. And this is the toolbox with the shoes. And I absolutely did not harm my wife and my son, nor did I put their bodies in my truck, nor is there any evidence to support that ill-conceived theory. There was no sign of Laci's body, tissue, hair, or any other biological evidence found inside the toolbox or anywhere else in the truck, and that is because I had nothing to do with this crime. When Detective Grogan admitted on the stand that there was a large cardboard box full of work material found inside the toolbox in my truck, which the police admitted they failed to collect as evidence or document in a report, the prosecutor pivoted to a new theory and said that I put my wife's body under some patio umbrellas that were in the back of my truck and that I covered her with blue tarp. Again, there was no forensic evidence or any other evidence supporting that theory. Nothing was found on the blue tarp, the umbrellas, or any of the many other items that were collected from my truck and tested. That is because Laci was never in the back of my truck because I had nothing to do with her disappearance or murder. One thing the jury did not hear during the execution of the May 26th search warrant, scent dog handler Eloise Anderson already knew the police believed I killed Laci and put her body into my truck. So she asked Detective Hendy if he wanted her to put her cadaver dog into my truck to search for evidence of the cadaver, and Detective Hendy said no. It is difficult to fathom why the police would not put cadaver dog into the back of my truck if they believe I transported my wife's dead body in my truck. And this one doesn't show anything, but it's like a blank box. I also learned that after I was arrested that the police searched our home using a cadaver dog on December 26th, and there was no alerts inside our house. The photos below was taken inside our house while the cadaver dog was looking for, but not finding any evidence that I killed Laci. Sturgeon. December 26th search warrant affidavit also stated that another thing police found suspicious was that I could not tell the police what kind of fish I had gone fishing for that day, December 24, 2002. I have fished all my life. I enjoyed it. When Laci and I honeymooned in Tahiti, I took along a fishing rod and fished from a kayak we rented there one day. I had never tried fishing for sturgeon before December 24th, and I wanted to try it. When the police asked me what kind of fish I was looking for that day, I described it as a prehistoric looking fish. I could not immediately find the word sturgeon in my head. I recalled the words a few moments later and told the police. I also showed them my fishing boat and gear, and at no point did I ever try to hide anything about the fishing I had done earlier that day. When the search warrant was actually served on me, I read it and saw it was asking my fishing license, and I immediately handed it over to the police then and there. As I told Detective Broccini and others repeatedly, I was fishing for sturgeon. With everything that was going on that day, Laci turned up missing with numerous family members and volunteers, police officers searching for Laci in and around our home. I felt a little overwhelmed and did not immediately find the word sturgeon when I was first asked. La Loma neighborhood in Modesto. Laci and I were both involved in La Loma neighborhood and community affairs, but Laci was more active than I was, especially after she transitioned to a lighter work schedule. In mid 2002, Laci signed us up to be part of the neighborhood committee called La Loma neighborhood committee to stop the Encina connection. We attended committee meetings between July and October 2002. The committee was an organized effort to defeat a proposal to make changes to the neighborhood that would increase vehicle traffic. Laci and I spent a few weeks videotaping traffic patterns on our camcorder as part of the efforts to show that the traffic was driving at a dangerous speed through the neighborhood, making it unsafe for children and pedestrians. There was a number of streets in our neighborhoods that did not have sidewalks, including our street, which meant that the people taking walks had to walk on the road in certain areas. I was proud of Laci for her commitment to getting engaged in making our neighborhoods and communities better and safer. We were aware that there was an entirely different neighborhood on the other side of the Yosemite Boulevard, a few blocks south of where we lived. It was an industrial area referred to as the Airport District because it was next to the Modesto Airport. There was some lower income housing there, and what seemed to be a fair amount of criminal activity. I was not paying close attention at the time, but Laci and I knew not to go south of Yosemite Boulevard when we went out to walk the dog. At the end of our street, there was a trail entrance to East La Loma Park, and we often saw people entering and exiting the park who appeared to be homeless or transient. When Laci and I walked McKinsey to the park, we sometimes saw transient or homeless people camping out. We usually asked them to move along. It looked like the bike and the foot traffic we saw on Covina was from people traveling to and from the airport district, using our street to get to the trail entrance at the end of Covina to get down to East La Loma Park. Laci and I were getting increasingly concerned about the unsavory foot traffic we were seeing on our street from people going to and from the park. It was of such a concern to us that we discussed whether we would have purchased our home had we known about the concerning foot traffic. In the discovery I received from the prosecutor after I was arrested, I learned that on September 5th and October 31st, 2002, Laci did contact the city of Modesto and asked them to close the entrance to the park located at the end of our street because there was concerning and undesirable activity taking place there. The city of Modesto either ignored or denied her request because the park entrance was not close to my knowledge. The email below reflects Laci's request and were known to police because they were included in the police investigation file. So I think that's redacted because they're not here, y'all. So I'm assuming that what's blank gets redacted, okay? There were a few other incidents that occurred on our street around that time. One night we were pulling into our driveway and we saw a man looking over our fence into our backyard. I saw him what he was doing and he came up with some extra excuse and he was trying to see if our dog was okay. I started walking towards him when he circled around me and took off. I recall mentioning the incident at the time to Brett Rochat, Laci's brother, and his wife. Around that same time, Laci told me she heard what sounded like two women shouting each other in the street in front of our house. Laci says she went out and told them to stop fighting, and that kind of behavior would not be tolerated in the neighborhood. One police report I reviewed states that our neighbor heard the encounter on December 30th, 2002. He told the police about it. I know that Laci was intent on keeping our neighborhood safe, and she was not shy about it. About a year earlier, we caught the same guy looking over our fence and going through our trash can when it was in the driveway. As we pulled our car into the driveway, he was pulling an old bedspread out of our trash that we had thrown away and had it in his hands. I told him to get off our property and he walked away carrying the bedspread with him. I often saw this man riding his bike up and down our street. At one of the community meetings Laci and I attended, we met a man who lived around the corner from us, Richard Cordova. We shared with him that when we took walks in the park and encountered homeless or transient people camping out, it made us uncomfortable. Mr. Cordova told us he thought confronting anyone in the park was bold and possibly dangerous. After Laci was abducted, I learned that Mr. Cordova told the investigator our family hired to help search for Laci, Gary Ermonia, I think that's how you say his last name, that he was concerned to think that Laci may have been bold enough to confront someone like that on her own. Mr. Cordova, who had become a judge by the time of my trial, testified to some of this, but he was not allowed to testify fully about our conversation or his concerns over the possible dangers involved in Laci's confronting transient in the park on her own in front of the jury because it was hearsay. All right, so let me stop right here because before we get into the next part. So I'm seeing here Scott Peterson is is laying out a scenario in this situation, right? He's basically saying that they had noticed a number of transient people, things were changing. Laci and Scott were heavily involved in like making the neighborhood safe. So at some point while they were, in this new property, the neighborhood became unsafe, right? I think this is interesting, right? Because one of the things that Detective Broccini failed to investigate, right? Or at least they really didn't look into this and they gave the wrong date, was that there was a robbery around the same time that Laci went missing. Clearly, there was an issue of safety in the neighborhood. I mean, they had people taking stuff out of their trash. And this is what he's laying out, is that it's possible Laci could have confronted somebody, and it's a plausible theory that she confronted somebody and that they abducted her. So Scott Peterson here in his declaration has given us basically a window to that possibility, if that makes sense. Laci's purse, clothing, jewelry, and flip-flops. Police asked to see Laci's purse. One of the first things the police asked was for me to help locate Laci's purse, which I showed police was hanging in its usual spot in her clothes closet. Laci's purse and the items inside were handled by multiple people who are not wearing gloves, myself included. This would become important later because her sunglasses case was used as a scent article. I often clean Laci's glasses for her using the cleaning cloth in her purse/glasses case. So this is Laci's bag hanging here, okay? It looks like she's got, is this a lipstick there too? Oh, this is all of her items out. Clothes and pajamas from December 23rd. I told police what Laci was wearing on the night of December 23rd when we went to her sister's hair salon. I told them what she wore to bed that night and what she was wearing when I left the next morning. The police did not look for the clothing or the pajamas that I described Laci wearing when they searched the house on December 24th. But the blouse Laci wore to the salon that night is clearly visible in our hamper when the police photographed it on December 24th. And the blue pajama pants I told police she wore to bed that night were photographed, still in the hamper during the December 26th search of our home. Sometime later, the police asked Laci's sister, Amy, what she was wearing when we visited the salon on December 23rd, and her description of the clothing was the same as mine. Amy searched Laci's closet and found the outfit Laci wore to the salon the night before she was abducted and showed the outfit to the police. Laci's jewelry. Laci inherited quite a bit of jewelry from her grandmother in November of 2002. I told police Laci was wearing a diamond necklace, diamond earrings, and a diamond bezel watch she had inherited from her grandmother when I left the house on the morning of December 24th. Her wedding ring was at the jeweler's being modified to incorporate some of her grandmother's diamonds. Some of the jewelry Laci inherited was not to her liking, so she sold it. We listed some of her grandmother's jewelry on eBay, including a Croton watch, but it did not sell. I had an account, but Laci was not as adept at using the online auction platform, so I helped her with it. Police obtained an image of the Croton watch from our eBay account, which we had posted it for sale, and the police were able to confirm that it had not sold. I had used our camcorder to get a picture of the watch as pictured below. I learned after I was arrested that police suspected I secretly sold Laci's Croton's watch without her knowledge. So Detective Grogan spent a lot of time trying to find the Croton watch. I did not sell Laci's Croton's watch, and there's no evidence suggesting otherwise. The police investigated and photographed the jewelry Laci had sold at Brooks Jewelers on December 10, 2002. The photograph below shows the jeweler Laci pawned at Brooks' pawn shop that the police were able to locate and document. Laci's flip-flop. The rendering below is a depiction of the flip-flop that Laci generally kept on the back of the stoop. We joked about them being her Nova Lee flip-flop from the movie Where the Heart Is. In the movie, Nova Lee is abandoned in a Walmart parking lot, and she buys a cheap plastic pair of flip-flops at Walmart. We had an inside joke about them that she could not go out in public with them on. She wore them around the pool in the backyard. Our neighbor, Judge Cordova, told my defense investigator, Carl Jensen, that he had found a pair of women's sandals on the morning of December 25th on the corner of our street. Mr. Jensen asked me if any of Laci's flip-flops were missing, and I told him that her Nova Lee flip-flops were missing from the stoop after she was abducted. Mr. Jensen had an artist create an image to show to me. Picture below. As I recall, Laci's flip-flop were a bit more orange than pictured here, but I believe the flip-flops that our neighbor Judge Cordova saw at the end of the block and pointed out to various police officers belonged to Laci. Not until a year after Laci was abducted did anyone investigate the sandals or flip-flops Judge Cordova found. Peterson home. So this is the house, and this is where Laci's flip-flop was located, or at least something that looked like Laci's flip-flop. Hopefully you guys can see that picture. So I'm going to stop right here. This is part 1. I'm going to upload part 2 hopefully this week and get it going and record it. Let me know what you guys think so far of Scott Peterson's declaration. Again, this is 126 pages of his side of the situation. I mean, let me know what you guys think. Do y'all feel differently? Do you have more questions about this case? Do you feel like a thorough investigation was done? I'm also going to direct you guys to a video that I did, I want to say maybe 5 months ago about this, and the documentary that they had dropped, because I think it's relevant to what Scott Peterson is dropping now. I think it's relevant. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Hit the like button, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Rabbits out. Bye, guys.